So we don't consider ourselves Dvija in a traditional sense. We understand our position. We were born here in the West. And we like to forget about the past, because for many of us, the past was not exactly a very, something you would write about. But the real story begins when we met Srila Prabhupada. And so that happened in the, when Srila Prabhupada came to America, that was 1965. So at that time, it was the height of the counterculture movement. So many of us would frequent the area known as Greenwich Village. So it's divided East Village and West Village. So we would be both. Washington Square Park is West Village, and then you had the area where the temple was on 2nd Avenue, that was the East Village. So we were very fond of these different areas, and occasionally we would see Srila Prabhupada and his early disciples, but we wouldn't really take much interest because we had our own agenda. So that's the point about this is the past we don't really need to emphasize. But fast forward a few years later, and I was working in the New York Public Library. Maybe you've seen it. It's called the Astra Lennox 42nd Street Library. Occupies a huge city block with Bryant Park behind it. So at that time I was in school, and I was working in the economics division of the library. And my office window faced Fifth Avenue. And regularly, not every day, of course the devotees would chant in many different places, but regularly the devotees would chant outside on Fifth Avenue and 42nd Street in front of the library. Because it was a gathering spot, many people would sit on the steps, the long steps, and take in the summer or winter sun or watch everything going by. It was a very busy area, Fifth Avenue and 42nd Street. So at that time, a devotee, although I'd met devotees many times before, prior to this, I had no interest in engaging in any dialogue or conversation. They would come, distribute books to us, back to Godhead. We would usually give something. In those days, you could give 25 cents, get it back to Godhead, and get something called a luglu. And nobody really wanted the Back to Godhead magazine, but everybody wanted the luglu, because it was famous. Everyone knew that this Hare Krishna health food bar was very special. It was the first health food bar in New York City, as far as I remember, made from very nice ingredients, and ghee, honey, figs, dates, nuts, amaranth, cashews, raisins. I mean, it was exquisite. And if people saw a devotee, they would always ask them, do you have one of those? They didn't know what they were. And give a donation. So we were the same. We would take donation, but again, never really engaged. But this time a devotee, I could see, he was walking up the stairs and I knew he was coming to me. You get that feeling, you know. He's heading straight towards me. And he asked, I thought I'll challenge him, because I knew he was going to try to sell me a book or anything. And I was reading a small Mayavad version of Bhagavad Gita by the Theosophists. Anyone ever heard of Madame Blavatsky? Everyone's heard of Vivekananda, correct?
Yes.
Okay, when Vivekananda came, he influenced certain people. One of them was a Russian mystic named Madame Blavatsky. So she had a society called the Theosophists. So they had published a small Bhagavad Gita by one of her disciples. Very small. The pamphlet just, I think it was even published by Penguin Books, you know, which is, everyone gets Penguin paperback books. And so I was reading it, and it was very nice, flowery language, poetic, prose. And I was enjoying it, but I couldn't find a connection between Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita and these people wearing, you know, funny clothes, chanting Hare Krishna. I couldn't reconcile the two. So when the devotee came to me, he wanted to speak something. I said, what do you have to do with Krishna? I said, I'm reading Bhagavad Gita, And then he stopped me, he said, "You're reading Bhagavad Gita? What Bhagavad Gita are you reading?" So naively, foolishly, whatever, I thought all Bhagavad Gitas must be the same. Right? It's Bhagavad Gita. I took out my paperback, which we used to carry in our back pockets or something like that. And I showed him, and he looked at it. He said, "That's not Bhagavad Gita." And this is 1972. They had just published the Macmillan version, unabridged. And he happened to have one copy. And he put it out to me. He said, "This is Bhagavad Gita," like that. So there's also a famous New York story about an Australian man who comes to New York City called Crocodile Dundee. And he's about to be mugged downtown by City Hall. And this gentleman of undetermined ethnic origins comes up to him, and he takes out a knife and he says, "Give me your money." And Crocodile Dundee looks down, and the guy says, "I have a knife." And Crocodile Dundee goes, "That's not a knife." And he pulls out this big, huge Bowie knife. He said, "This is a knife." And the knife was like this. It was 3, 4, 5 times bigger than that knife. So I felt similarly awkward. That I was overpowered by this Brahmastra Bhagavad Gita compared to my puny little paperback. So I didn't know what to say. So, but I escaped, abject humility. I took a card. And that was the first mantra card I'd ever seriously looked at. They used to have them stapled to the package that the lug glues came in, but we just discarded it and ate the lug glue. But when he gave this card, I looked at it, I put it in my wallet, and I thought, all right. I went back to work, didn't think about it. And then maybe a few days later, I thought this person, he impressed me by his bold confidence. I never really thought about the Krishnas in that capacity. I just thought they were kind of maybe lost souls, didn't know what to do, burnt out. In those days, so many drugs. People took shelter in various, whatever you want to call it, groups. And there were many groups. There was Satchidananda Swami, Shivananda, so many in East Village at that time. But I came out of work, and it was lunchtime, so I took out the card. And on the back of the card it says, "Chant these names of God and your life will be sublime." That's what it said on the mantra card. Chant these names of God and your life will be sublime. So I thought, okay, who can't use a little sublime? So I thought, let me try chanting. So I was just chanting. I had the card, and I was walking down Fifth Avenue. And the strangest thing happened. When I was chanting, it felt like I was the only person, even though there were hundreds, if not more people walking on the street. But it seemed that there was only the holy name, and I didn't know what to make of that. I thought, perhaps it's because I had, smoked something or whatever, but I thought that's strange. So then I said, okay, I'll have to try it again, and under a different set of circumstances to determine what actually happened. And so I took it. I was born and raised in New York. I was born in Hell's Kitchen, which is in Midtown Manhattan, on the West Side, famous area made famous by a movie called West Side Story, a play and a movie. But I was raised in an area called Astoria, which is another area in Queens, right on the section next to the East River. We had a nice park, Astoria Park, a very simple situation. And so I went to chant there to see if I could duplicate that whatever it was. And I found that the mantra had a very profound effect, because I found that this was something which in those days, the mind's focus was a little, nobody even knew what it meant to be, have a single point of attention. Bhagavad Gita says, Vyavasayamika buddhir ekeha karunandana. That one pointed attention is what separates the transcendentalists from those whose intelligence is many-branched. So chanting that, I actually felt something, enough to think that I want to go visit the temple. And the temple, there was a map on the back of that mantra card. And it was all the way in Brooklyn, on Henry Street, which is not far from here. It's about a mile, a little less. But it's a long train ride from Queens. But somehow or other, I got up the courage, because I knew that this was something different that I was going to be entering into that time. It was a lot of information to process. The sights, the sounds, the aromas, everything was completely different from anything else. Actually, I had met a devotee, he was a bhakta like myself, and on the way, when we were walking down the street, he said, "Oh, are you going to the Hare Krishna temple?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "Are you going?" He said, "Yes." So it was very coincidental. And when we got close to the temple appeared to be not of this world. And not, you could say, whatever, maybe that's just some impression, sometimes you superimpose what you expect, a self-fulfilling prophecy type of situation. But the building itself seemed to be effulgent. And I thought that was very strange. And not only effulgent, it appeared to be almost as if it was alive. And so, because it had an aura, and people are always talking about these type of things, about how there are some specific vibrations associated with certain, whatever, objects, mantras, things like that. But this building was not like anything I'd ever seen or approached. And when we went in, and of course the kirtan was in full swing, and in those days, New York kirtans were famous. If you go out to the internet or to YouTube, you can still find New York kirtans from this time frame, 1973, 74, 75, like that. So, and it was obviously everyone was having a good time. I could feel the energy, but I didn't know, and I wasn't about to try to make my way into this really packed temple room. But I could see the deities of Radha Govinda at the other end, but I had no idea what I was looking at the time. But I met some very serious students, friends of mine, they're still friends of mine, who we spoke for some time, and he answered my question, very articulate, erudite. He would have been right in this crowd. He was a graduate of, I think, he might have been City University. And very eloquent, answered all of my questions. And without any, how can you say, pressure or force, or just simple conversation. But literally answering whatever question I had, he put to rest any doubt at that point, from that level, very simple level, coming for the first time to the temple. But I went home that night and read that Bhagavad Gita, basically cover to cover. I don't think I slept for at least 24 hours. I couldn't put it down because I couldn't believe that I had found, well, when I was young, we used to always joke with our friends who we considered somehow a group of, people who were serious about finding the truth, or what was the nature of reality. I mean, that's what impelled a lot of people into drugs, and taking psychotropic, hallucinogenic, things like that. And when I read this Bhagavad Gita, everything that we had discussed previously that we thought was unanswerable, the nature of the soul, what is the nature of transmigration, which we thought it was just reincarnation. So all these things, I thought, how is it possible that I'm getting this book that I've been seeing, that I would hope to have found in that library with millions, because that's why I went to work in the library, because I thought, I'll find the truth here. Of course, I did, I just didn't realize it. The truth came in front of my window chanting the Maha Mantra. I thought I would find it in the stacks, amongst all these ancient, antique editions of some philosophical work. So after reading that Bhagavad Gita, I had no clue what to do. Now I found the absolute truth. But then I remembered the devotee said Srila Prabhupada's coming to the temple. So had already planned on going the next Sunday. And when I went, I asked the devotee I was conversing with, his name is Archita, a very sweet devotee. And he told me, yes, Prabhupada's coming. He introduced me to the temple president and said that this young man wants to meet Prabhupada. I really didn't know if that's what I wanted, but I wanted to be there and listen for sure. And the price to pay was very small. I just had to wash pots. So I went in, they showed me where to go wash pots, and I washed the pots all night that Sunday feast, washed everything. And they said, come back, and just engage in service. And then when Prabhupada comes, if you've done that, it's a little bit like a movie. You have to come and show you're sincere. Like the kid standing outside the Shaolin temple, trying to make everybody believe that he's worthy to enter inside. So washing all these pots, and then they said, okay, you can stay this weekend that Prabhupada was there, and that was a great honor. Normally just a simple bhakti. But I had I was handy with different things, tools and whatnot, and Prabhupada's quarters were in some disrepair. And so that was, on the basis of that, they said, if you can fix these things, then you can stay overnight. And we've done that in the past with other devotees. You try to engage people. So I did whatever I had to do, fix some broken windows, fix some things here and there. And then Srila Prabhupada came. So this is the change. Whatever happened before that is really not so important. But that evening, Prabhupada came in the evening. For the week or so before that, myself and some of the devotees, we built a new Vyasasana, which is the Vyasasana that's in the temple room upstairs. So we built the new Vyasasana, and then we moved the other one to Prabhupada's quarters in the back, his sitting room. And then, of course, we were very happy that we could do something that the spiritual master would be using, and is still using technically. And so then I sat in the audience, but we had been up probably for 1 or 2 days trying to finish everything. So I couldn't sit down and listen. I had to stand up because we sat down, you immediately fall asleep. So I sat there, and next to Prabhupada, I was standing on Prabhupada's left side, just not far, as close, like where some ushers there. I was standing. I was just watching Prabhupada, and I was just trying to listen very hard. And I knew that this was a very special person. And I'd seen many people, and I was we were in, that background that I had equipped me to try to separate people who were charlatans, or we used to call them plastic people. They were very shallow, fake, not real. But when Prabhupada was there, it was obvious that this person is a genuine sadhu. I didn't know what sadhu meant, but we could understand that this person is the real Swami. All these other Swamis were fake. It was almost instantaneously. I'd seen many of my friends go to this guy or that guy, this Guru Maharaji and this, and they were all disappointed. And so that was a good lesson for us. I didn't have to learn that by seeking out these. But I thought, this is how fortunate I was to come in contact. I tried to bring friends, but nobody was really. One friend came at that. And in that one first meeting, just a few words from Srila Prabhupada were able to, they call it Hridaya Granthi. There's the knot in the heart. So we're carrying this knot in the heart since time immemorial. We don't know how many births we've had in the human form of life, but to speak of the animal form of life. But he cut this knot that had somehow or other, I didn't even realize. And we don't want to make light of the fact that liberation is what we see or discuss and things like that. But when meeting a pure devotee is almost instantly liberating if you have the right attitude. And I'm not saying I had the right attitude, but I appreciated that from that point on, my life was changed. And so I said that I would dedicate my life. So I just turned 23. I said, so I've wasted 23 years in the material world. And I understood that very carefully, that almost like being reborn. I said, I will dedicate at least 23 months to determine whether or not this is actually real. Just a commitment. And it was a way to sort of like, because the mind at the same time was telling me, no, you don't want to do this. Come on, this is just another group. You know, there's so many groups you've seen, so many situations you've seen. What's different? But I said, no, I'll make an effort just to see. And so from that point, I stayed in the temple. It wasn't easy at the beginning. I had a lot of material attachments. But devotional service, washing the pots.
Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
So, I mean, you have spoken.
He has a lot of questions.
A lot of points. So, you have explained elaborately how you have met Prabhupada and your first impression. So, just some questions in between before we go on to.
This is like a TED talk now.
So I was just thinking.
This is the entertainment part.
Yeah. So I was just thinking, didn't you feel that you were something out of the crowd? Because, in the West, going to the Hare Krishnas, and who dress funny, who look funny, and worship a blue boy as God, didn't you feel like is something wrong here?
Well, actually, our generation was also very much into science fiction. And so that, it didn't appear to be any stranger. And as a matter of fact, it seemed to be more real and more believable.
Really?
And so it was, and just a little transparency, I'm from an Oriental background. So my father is Chinese and my mother is Irish. So I studied early on, although I was brought up in Christianity by my mother's influence. At a certain point, I left that in my early youth. And I began to follow a path of Zen and Taoism and Buddhism and martial arts and things like that. So then, so I was, obviously the philosophy of the Gita, even when in the superficial small pamphlet that I was reading, paralleled many of those points, as far as action, inaction, things like that. So I was prepared, and things started to drop into place, which made it easier. And so, it didn't matter. The deities took a little longer. That's okay. That's not to be understood. We had no experience and no exposure to that concept of the Archa Vigraha, right? And but my mind was open, fortunately, and it helped that there were so many intelligent devotees at that time. We had the what's called the press, the ISKCON press, was at Henry Street. It had the press was actually a few blocks away, but all the devotees lived in the temple, and so these were the Sanskrit editors. They would write the articles. They were the artists. They were the most educated members of our society at that time. And I was fortunate to be in that association. And so I didn't feel any inconvenience. I felt that this association is better than anything I've ever been in, any college, any other group. I thought this was, and although it felt strange just that everybody's wearing different clothing, but the intellectual atmosphere was where we made the impact to differentiate and impress, to say the least.
So you mean to say the philosophy made a lot of sense?
You can say that.
Okay. So is it the case that you were always spiritual?
Well,
or you were always looking for some kind of truth?
I was always looking for something. I was always looking for the truth. I didn't know what the truth was. And that was the other side of it. How do you recognize the truth? I remember my brother and I were discussing, and we had come to the conclusion that the truth is everything you know and everything you don't know. So So what then, how do you distill the essence of that? But I knew that I would recognize it when I found it. And this is something very interesting that, where does that come from? And when I did encounter Krishna consciousness, I knew that this was the truth, instinctively. And so therefore, I didn't have as much hesitation. Like I said, I was open-minded enough to go to the temple, to chant those names of God, to try to make my life sublime. Somehow or other, it felt almost natural at a certain point, and not out of place at all.
So did you go to the temple?
Except the clothing. I wasn't.
So did you go to temple for philosophy or association or prasadam?
Oh, well, of course, prasadam. Well, I went for everything. No, but it's a combination. Good food, good people, good conversation. I mean, it's just, there was nothing like it. I mean, you could not, the prasadam in the Henry Street Temple was famous all over ISKCON. And we had amazing cooks and amazing kirtan leaders. So that was a winning combination. You couldn't have asked for a better situation for someone who is new and impressionable, but at the same time, skeptical. So I needed to see everything. I mean, if the food is this good, I mean, how could, it's the best thing you've ever tasted.
Yeah. So, Prabhuji just mentioned that you were very sincere, like you wanted to give 23 months at least to let the magic happen to you, right? And I think that is very important for all of us. Why? Because we need to take it very seriously, the opportunity we got. And at least like for not...
That's
it. So, if not 23 months, at least for a couple of months, 6 months, we should at least try sincerely and absorb the Krishna consciousness and let the magic happen. One statement which you mentioned was very strong, that you felt that you have wasted 23 years of your life. And most of the students, if you take the average age of crowd over here, they are around 25. So
25 average?
almost, I think.
27,
27, yeah. 27, 28. That's the average age of the crowd we have right now. So my question to you is that how was your work and business after Krishna consciousness? Or you just gave up everything and just did Krishna consciousness?
My work, I was able to continue for some time. I was depending on some of that income for just remaining independent. I didn't want to depend on my parents or be a burden. No one likes to, and at least in our generation, we didn't, we weren't really hippies. I mean, I had done the hippie thing after high school, traveled across the country in a '57 Chevrolet, and it was the American dream, and we did that. And people don't, they made movies about it, but we actually did it. And then when I came back, I was done with that, really. It didn't, no longer attractive. And then so but I had gone into what I thought, of course, everyone thinks that he's smarter than the next person, or he wants to be the leader of his group. Like Prabhupada said that he was the leader of his group. See? And then people considered himself, so that when they had met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, his friend Narendra, he wanted to take Prabhupada so that Prabhupada could give him, say, yes, this is a bona fide. So this was something similar like that I also wanted to see that when I first met Prabhupada, that this is a genuine person. And of course I was. And then I told everybody, but it's a little overkill. You can't, that zealousness, that enthusiasm, it doesn't always translate correctly. It seems like you're trying to, everybody thinks, oh, you found something, and then you're trying to tell me that you found something. And I didn't have the command of the philosophy to agree. I mean, I did. I could hold my own, and that was part of the reason why in our group we used to have these discussions about the truth. And so I convinced a few to come, and one person eventually joined and stayed. But but I definitely realized that I had wasted my life, and I very shortly thereafter, then I just moved into the temple. So there wasn't a big gap, maybe a year or so, that I had to try to wind down, try to detach myself from my and people don't know what these anarthas, these unwanted connections to things based on some subtle mental attachment, stupid things that you don't know that you're attached to until you try to give it up. Just sentimental, literally objects that you collect when you're young. And how many things can you collect when you're 10 to 23? But still, there were things that I was attached to. And but I had a realization that if I'm attached to these, then what happens at the time of death? You know, what will be my fate? So that let me give those up and go to the temple. I just left everything behind. Cars, clothes, you know, whatever money I had, I gave to the temple. But everything else, I just got rid of. It was very liberating. And then you felt unburdened. I don't want to misuse that word. A lot of politicians use that word all the time, but I felt unburdened. And so that, that's the thing. So I mean, we don't expect it. And this is a very nice crowd, and I congratulate all of you for coming and taking the time to listen. My story is not the same as everyone else's stories. They keep trying to get me to tell my past, but that's not important, the past. The future is important. What I did by Krishna's mercy, and we don't use that term lightly, but having been born in New York and having been close to death on many occasions, more than probably anyone here will ever experience, that I generally understand the term Krishna's mercy. And so I found that I was able to be engaged. I was able to serve at different capacities, Srila Prabhupada's bodyguard and his servant, or his repair person. And at a certain point, I did construction for all these different temples, and then got the most merciful opportunity to help to complete Srila Prabhupada's final resting place in Vrindavan. So that was, of course, everyone has something that he looks forward to. And of course, I had no idea what I was getting into when I went to do this construction in India. Although I had done construction in New York for several years before that, immediately before that. But the presence of Srila Prabhupada in that location, and sometimes at some point, I hope that you get this opportunity to go and visit that sacred samadhi where Prabhupada is rested, because it is a very powerful center for spiritual energy that is there. It's not some ordinary thing. You know, people revere these different holy places, and they'll go to the tomb of this saint or that Sufi or that. But, you know, what I experienced, and they go one time and then they don't go again, they make a pilgrimage. But every day for 6.5 years, I was there doing some aspect of the construction there. And I felt Prabhupada's presence very tangibly. And when I left, I felt the separation very tangibly. So this is something that how you measure it. So you have to have the experience in order to know what the separation will be like. So this is just a small little aspect of this, what the relationship with a spiritual master, with Krishna, that these things do develop in a way. What is that verse? You know that verse. Pratyaksha bhagamam dharmyam susukam kartamavyam. That this philosophy, what Krishna tells Arjuna, this knowledge is a king of education. It is the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. So this is it, the tangible aspect. Nobody has to tell you that you're making advancement in spiritual life. You'll know it if you're actually making advancement. And everyone else can see it as well because it's noticeable. But having these tangible experiences is what reinforces your, from the very beginning, your neophyte faith. We're not looking at miracles. Many people in different philosophies are always calling about miracles. But these are not, making some ash or some things like that. These are not miracles. Prabhupada said these are when in one pandal, and someone was asking Prabhupada to make some vibhuti, And Prabhupada said, this is nothing. It says, and he looked out there was thousands of devotees. He said, this is my miracle, converting these Westerners into Vaishnavas. So this is something that, of course, just in itself, if one sees these things objectively, one can appreciate how this is very special, different from all other so-called movements. Now there's many Westerners joining these various different spiritual groups, but it was not like that previously. So you have to see the difference between what this Krishna conscious movement offers and what any other philosophy offers in the way of reality and practical realization, practical application, lifelong fulfillment. He might have mentioned, this year will be my 50th anniversary of being in Krishna consciousness. Golden anniversary. So there's, it's not something that you think about, well, where will I be in 50 years? But in one sense, it's interesting to note how that transition and what's transpired and everything else at some point, everyone will get an opportunity to read books like the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then you see all these different parallels, things that you would have never considered or conceived. And you read these Bhagavatams and you realize, okay, yes, I understand how these sages at Naimisharanya, how they felt enlivened hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, how they were able to sit there under those circumstances and hear this knowledge, which in itself is just like life. You don't even realize, you don't think you need anything else. And in Krishna consciousness, we're like that. We don't really need anything external. We're not hankering. There's that verse in Gita, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, na sochiti na kankshiti. That lamentation and hankering are the symptoms of everyone in the material world. But the devotee, he is the single person who's freed from that. He's no longer lamenting or hankering, lamenting for what he lost or hankering for what he wants to have. Everything in the material world is based on those two things, lamentation and hankering. All right? So that's, you don't want to be in that situation. Dili Kaladu. You know that story, Dili Kaladu?
I don't know.
No.
What? How is it you don't know that? Everyone knows that there's this very famous, in Chandni Chowk, very famous sweet shop near the clock. Okay, there's a few sweet shops, but this one is famous for its ladus, Dili Ka Ladu. And so it's said that those who have tasted this, they want to taste it again. They lament. And those who have not tasted it, they want to taste it. They're hankering. So this is used to compare to things in the material world, which are not sweets, but just like our relationships between men and women. So it's like that. So we don't want to get into that state of constant hankering and lamentation. It's a vicious cycle. It never ends. You get something, then you want something else. It doesn't. All these billionaires, they're not happy. They may put on a show, but they don't have internal satisfaction. Gyatva bhuta shantim. So this is for real peace. One has to know this Bhagavad Gita philosophy, and then he can speak it. He'll find his own peace, and he'll be able to influence others. We're not trying to just be selfish. We don't have any desire to sit back, smug, self-satisfied, and think, okay, I found it. I'm good. I'm cool. I'll go to a cave in the Himalayas and that's it. No, it's not. We're not like that. We had, Prabhupada showed by his example, left the holy Dham, the place where we would all like to be. Actually, once you come to Krishna consciousness, you realize what Prabhupada gave up. we're constantly in the back of our mind thinking, when can I go to Vrindavan? And Prabhupada left Vrindavan to come here and struggled so much. We can't even, it's so difficult to imagine coming from India in UP, hot like anything, because I've lived there through all the summers, and then come and with a pair of rubber bath shoes made by Bata, and walk around in the coldest winter in New York City they had for years. And we have those shoes upstairs. And in order to just give a little relief, he put cardboard inside these shoes, like the bums on the Bowery would put newspapers in their shoes or wear double socks. And he wore them out, but he wouldn't even buy another pair of shoes. He actually put holes in them. And he had the cardboard in there to cover the holes on these rubber bath shoes, white rubber bath shoes. So this is symbolic of the hardships that he faced without any complaint. He could have, somebody would have given him another pair of shoes, at a certain point, but he had no desire for any personal situation of his own. So once we understood that, of course, our love and our attachment became that much stronger. And so for us, it's, this relationship between the guru and the disciple is very special. We didn't understand it. But when we read Gita, when we read Bhagavatam, when we read all these relationships between the various acharyas and their disciples, we felt great comfort that we were able to meet this great soul. So there's our fortune knows no bounds, and we have no way to repay it except to continue to render service to such a nice facility like this.
So, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So before we go on to discussing about Sri Prabhupada, I was thinking if anyone else has any question and you would like to ask Hansrupa Prabhu. Yeah. You may need this. Hold this also.
You just have to hold that because that's for the benefit of those who are not here.
Dandot Pranam Prabhu, thank you so much for all the words, your experience you're sharing with us. So my question is, you mentioned about the difference, the energy you felt when first time you chanted the name. And it's my personal experience, I'm not talking about anybody's way up, but there's some days where you feel that energy, and then there's some days when you chant but you observe your mind is wandering and you don't feel it the same. And then you feel like, I'm so far away, I'm so fallen. So how to overcome that so that you have that energy and inside you, and you chant with the full bhakti?
Very nice question. That, the taste for the holy name is slowly acquired. The discipline involved, like anything else, is in itself a certain accomplishment, and one feels that by this practice, there's multiple things which are simultaneously occurring within myself. One is the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's giving us the hint that Chaita Darpana Marjanam Bhava Mahadavadina, that this chanting of the holy names is cleaning the heart. So sometimes cleaning is not very pleasant. If I have to clean a toilet, cleaning my car, everybody likes to clean their car because it's an extension of his false ego. He said, look at my car, how beautiful, it's like that. But nobody likes to clean his toilet. So this is sometimes chanting the Maha Mantra is a little harder at different times according to my mindset. And so I have to adjust my mindset to understand what it is I'm doing. And what I'm doing is I'm accomplishing the perfection and the purification that is very rarely achieved. It's as if, there's been many parables and analogies about people who want to get rich quick, but who try and to short circuit the process. and they fail miserably. So there are no shortcuts in self-realization, and chanting Hare Krishna is actually an accelerator. Just like if there's many things that can go wrong in the material world if you add the wrong ingredients. But when you add the holy name, everything becomes a positive integer. Everything. It just may not seem like it initially. Matter of fact, there's a saying, I can't remember which sadhu said it, but in the beginning, that which is like poison, in the end will be like nectar. And that which in the beginning is like nectar, in the end will be like poison. So it's a little bitter medicine. Just like everyone, maybe not everyone, in India, we frequently, the devotees, we would get jaundice. And jaundice is not very pleasant. And you can't, nothing tastes right, your whole metabolism is messed up. And so, but the cure is sugar candy, mystery. You suck on the mystery. But the mystery tastes terrible because your liver it secretes something so that whatever you put in your mouth that's sweet tastes very bitter. So it's very strange how that works. But by taking that mystery, that sugar, that is the cure for jaundice. It brings balance back. And then again, the sugar, which has never changed. Not that the sugar became bitter. It's not like the Mahamantra becomes bitter. But because my metabolism, my system is not correct, therefore I don't appreciate the sweet taste. But by more chanting, by the gradual purification of my heart, automatically I begin to relish that taste. And so there's no question of I won't do it today or it's hard for me to do it. Yeah, it always takes a little effort. And we can thank Maya for that. Maya, that George Harrison sung, beware of darkness, beware of Maya. It's always there, ready to cover us at a moment's notice. And she doesn't give us any relief. When someone is trying to pursue a spiritual goal, then Maya is giving him an equal dose of her discouragement in the form of material tests. Whatever you're attached to, whether it's sex, drugs, or rock and roll, okay? One of those will manifest. And that's just a euphemism because that's what we grew up on. But whatever your weakness is, Maya has a way to put that in front of you and say, no, you can put your japa down for now and just whatever. Go and hang out online for a half an hour. But no, this is, so like that. So keep chanting. You'll be, very quickly, you'll be rewarded. Most people don't realize how quickly. But as soon as you begin to chant seriously, and there's no force, like I said, when the devotees offered me the japa mala, which I had no idea, actually a very nice devotee, my elder godbrother, gave me my first set of beads. His name is Rupanuga Prabhu. So they used to have a little japa class in the Henry Street Temple. And so I don't think it was the first time, but it might have been the second time. And because things are going on in different places, first time was a little bit too busy, too new. I couldn't figure everything out. But the second session, the second time I went, I felt a little more relaxed. I had read the Bhagavad Gita. I had a lot of questions. I didn't know anything about japa. I didn't know what devotees were chanting beads. And then there was a japa class. I said, okay, let me see what's going on. And so there was a few devotees there. They sat down, and someone passed out these beads. And then Rupanuga came and showed us how to finger the beads and to chant and to listen to each syllable. And so that was the first, and then we chanted one round completely. So that was the first time I'd ever chanted on beads one round. That episode on Fifth Avenue when I was just chanting, I probably chanted for 15 or 20 minutes, walking from 42nd Street to 59th Street and back. But so that, anyway, that experience was, of course, a turning point. And because I took those beads home. Matter of fact, I still have the card that came with the beads, because the beads had a card on them, a little gold fold-up tent card, and showed how to finger the beads and said how to chant. Chant like a child crying for its mother, like a river flowing into the ocean. So everything was there, and so it was a very nice hands-on experience. And I'll never forget it, of course, and it's 50 years ago. But that, of course, planted the seed. And Rupanug and I were still good friends, and he was a professor at SUNY in Buffalo. So he started one of the early temples in upstate New York. Some very, very educated, professorial. He really has that demeanor. Very, very nice devotee. So I hope everyone gets a chance to get that taste. It's happened a couple of times since when I'm chanting. All of a sudden, I feel like I'm no longer in the material world, but I'll just attribute it to my desire, as opposed to just some genuine, actual, because there is a point of samadhi where one is elevated and he's fully cleansed and cleared and he's, perfected and developed his relationship with the spiritual master and Krishna. The spiritual master will give him an opportunity to associate on a different level. And these things are only discussed about in the highest circles of bhakti yoga. And you'll also read about them and study them because they're real, but we don't fantasize about them and we don't try to jump over the heads of our gurus to achieve something which is not being awarded to us, right? So not artificially. But it's there, and you will get glimpses. Krishna will give you glimpses of this. So I just want to let you know that that's how we know it's real. It's not just our imagination.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the question.
Very nice.
So, we hear about what Srila Prabhupada has done. He has traveled. At the age of 69, he left India. A lot of sacrifice. I heard just with 40 rupees. Anyone here who left India with 40 rupees?
Samaksh.
He took 40 lakhs. Isn't it? So, in this way we find that Srila Prabhupada is like a legend. And to be his disciple, it's a great honor, of course. So we want to know from you, what is that one incident that you had personally with Srila Prabhupada that you would like to share with us, that really touched your heart?
Well, Srila Prabhupada touched our hearts every moment we were with him. That's something that was, everyone who had the mercy of Prabhupada's association will relate the same thing. It's not, if there was any one point, it was that I finally realized that, he was a person who actually had the ability to save the entire world, not just one small person from Hell's Kitchen and Astoria, Queens. And when I sat in and of course, the first impression is always a lasting impression in most cases, good or bad. And so when Prabhupada was in the lecture, and I was struggling to stay awake by standing up, but fortunately I was close enough to feel that I was in the right place at the right time. So he said, and he was lecturing from second canto. That time there weren't many books published. Third canto was published at that time. Everything, they were still, actually hadn't even been distributed. But he was lecturing from second canto. And at some point, and the verse, and you can actually see these verses. You can go online, and there's the video, actually, of this lecture that Prabhupada gave, which was taken by our godbrother Pancharatna Prabhu, who's living in the temple, who stays in the temple here also. So he had a video camera, and he was filming this class. And so at one point, Prabhupada said that if you want to pick up a good thing, first you have to put down the dirty thing which is in your hand. A very simple thing. But when he said it, he looked right at me, as if to let me know that he understood how much dirt I had to let go. So I felt at this one time very amazed that he could say those words that I needed to hear, and that I had realized that, because I was thinking, how can I be in the association of so many of these devotees? I'm such a rascal. And I couldn't even begin to tell people what I had done. I was so ashamed, actually. And before that, of course, I wasn't ashamed because we didn't care. That's the point. At the point when you realize what a nonsense you are, then if you're normal, you have some shame. And so I realized the Prabhupada, of course, knew everything. You could hide from anyone else. You could pretend. You could put on a false front. But Prabhupada knew everything. And when he said that, I realized that this is the person who's given me the most essential instruction in my life. So I want to take it. And I did take it. I tried genuinely from that point on, up till now, to serve him in a manner, Prabhupada used to say to us with regards to Krishna, don't try to see Krishna, just act in such a way that Krishna sees you. But for us, that's how we related to Srila Prabhupada. We weren't, at least in my case, I wasn't concerned about whether there was going to be any personal recognition. Prabhupada did do that. He did it in many ways. But I wasn't looking for that. I wasn't looking for acknowledgement or anything like that. I just wanted to be able to serve this great soul. I recognized that this was something so special. Once in a million lifetimes, not just once in a lifetime, once in a million lifetimes. It was so clear to me that how fortunate I was. I never wanted to lose that association. Never wanted to do anything that would create a situation where I would have to leave Prabhupada's association. So I was very fortunate somehow or other, because Prabhupada used to caution us not to be too close to the spiritual master, not to be too intimate, where one might consider the spiritual master to be an ordinary human being. You know, ordinary means in the material sense. He's here, but the difference we understand philosophically, what is a liberated soul? So just like if I take an iron rod and I put it in fire, okay, it's an iron rod. But if I put it in fire, it becomes red hot. Wherever I touch it, it acts like fire. So it's become converted. Right? So that when a person, any spiritual person, but especially the pure devotees, they're already in the fire of this relationship with Krishna. They're not in the material world technically. So they're connected to him in such a way that if you're sincere, you will feel it. So that's why we don't consider them just ordinary human beings. You know, although they may seem to be to most people, but no. Krishna has chosen this person to act as his emissary. And that is very special. And there's many empowered who have been here in the past, and we have a whole line of gurus like that. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, is very evident from his life that this person was a unique, they called him a ray of Vishnu. Such a special person. If you read any of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's works, and I encourage you at some point, if anyone has some intellectual curiosity, there's a book called Brahma Samhita. Brahma Samhita was a lost text, which was found on Lord Chaitanya's South India tour, which is just one chapter from a book that lost to antiquity. But just this one chapter of this one book, the Brahma Samhita, contains everything about the entire cosmic manifestation and the entire spiritual realm. But it takes such a person to read it. If you start it, you'll understand what I mean. But the complete picture of how the spiritual and the material worlds coexist simultaneously, it's just a matter of frequency change, dimensional perception. It's like, you know, dogs can see and dogs can hear things that we cannot hear. But to us, they don't exist. So in that way, everything is existing simultaneously, concurrently, in the exact same space and time, technically. Just slight difference. But that's the Brahma Samhita. Very, very, I said, if you want to know how the truth can be appreciated from an intellectual perspective, if you read that, you will understand.
So even I
And
appreciate-
Arjuna is a scholar of Brahma Samhita.
I'm not. So even I appreciate Srila Prabhupada's the special capacity of making the topmost philosophy, very easy for anyone to understand, and that I would say is the specialty of Prabhupada's books. But someone can ask that, okay, this is all about spirituality, but what is the Hare Krishna movement or ISKCON actually doing for society in general? Practically, for the society.
Practical.
Or are we just, someone's begging on the street, people are dying in the hospital, and we just say, chant Hare Krishna?
All brahmacharis should beg on the street. Keeps you humble. This is since time immemorial.
This question is from youth perspective.
From the youth perspective, all these professionals, nobody has to beg. But if you're not careful, you may end up begging, going from this job to that job, begging, give me job, give me job. That's also begging. Give me work, give me work. So this, but it's a much higher vocation at a certain point, because everyone knows there's that happiness and distress come of their own accord. Has everyone realized that yet? No one is seeking distress, but distress comes. So in the same way, happiness will also come of its own accord. You don't really have to seek it. People are programmed or brainwashed to think that I have to do this to be happy. But happiness is the nature of the soul, Sat Chit Ananda, Ananda Maya Vyasat. So if I'm this Sat Chit Ananda, spirit soul, how do I tap into that reservoir of pleasure? How do I, at any point? So chanting the Maha Mantra is one way to get that. Of course, reading Prabhupada's books or even just thinking about Krishna's pastimes, because these things are not material. So but the more you do this, the more you realize what the difference is between mundane literature and transcendental literature. Because when you read transcendental literature, your mind is actually pacified and purified. Krishna book. Now, has everyone bought Krishna book yet? Where's our Krishna book warriors? Where's
They're waiting.
They're waiting. Okay, you will be approached. Okay, the summary study of the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto. We've titled it Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, the summary study. In this one volume, all the philosophy is condensed in a very readable format. Everything is there. A to Z, everything you've ever wanted to know is in that one summary of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. I was just listening to the prayers by the personified Vedas. This is such an enlightening chapter. I couldn't do it justice by describing, but anyone who reads it will find satisfaction intellectually, spiritually, even materially. Because you'll feel that this is real and that this is what satisfaction really means, to satisfy the soul, right? Because there's an analogy of the bird in the cage. Like everyone, maybe you know it and maybe you don't. This body, this external bag of bones and flesh, this is not self. This is just a container, a vessel. All right, so there's an analogy of a bird in a cage where somebody takes very good care of the cage, but they don't feed the bird inside. And then the bird eventually dies, either spiritually or materially, physically or metaphysically. So we want to understand, what do I need to do to feed the bird, my spirit soul? What do I need to? So that is by reading or hearing, just like you're hearing in classes. If you tune in to anything, or I listen to Srila Prabhupada every day as much as I can, because there's nothing hackneyed about. Someone would say, how could you listen to that? You've heard that lecture 100 times. Maybe I've heard it 1,000 times. It's always fresh, because that is the nature of transcendental knowledge. It's never tiring. It's never boring. It's not like When I was young, before I had books, shelves of books lined up all the way across my room that I'd read once or twice, and then they just sat there. Because why did you have to read it twice? It was nothing. Whatever was there, I got out of it. Now it's gone. Said, but I can read the Srimad Bhagavatam or the Krishna book unlimitedly. Start to finish and then begin again. And get something new and fresh each time. But why is that? Because each time, your consciousness is expanding. And so your capacity for understanding is increasing. And your realization of spiritual knowledge now crystallizes in a different way. So it's all catalytic in different ways. But once you do it, you'll know what we're talking about. That as your capacity expands, your ability to understand these different principles will also make more and more sense. And they'll become real, not just theoretical. This is the point, pratyaksha, practically realized, like that. And he wants to, I think he wants to know, like what we're saying as far as, what to do, happiness and distress. So I did, in the Krishna conscious movement, we all basically followed the same routine. I was a brahmachari for 8 years, right? I had a very wonderful time. Had no thought about really getting married. I didn't miss it. Celibacy is something which once you understand it, the value of it and the benefits, you see how you wonder why other people can't do it. Whether it's for a temporary or permanent, but very wonderful experience. And then at a certain point when I became more involved in activities where I was no longer what you could call brahmachari activities, I was simply doing construction and all types of work involving contractors and subcontractors and laborers. It's not conducive for a brahmachari lifestyle. It's not what we're meant for. So I thought, okay, I want to be honest. Now I'm engaged in all these different things. I should get married. All right? A very logical step for myself. So I asked my temple president, who was a dear friend of mine, I said, I'm thinking, and it's how it seems a little quaint in one sense, because it's not exactly the Indian system. You're not going to someone's, a father's house, some prospective bride's house, and like this, or there's no swayamvar, So, I asked my temple president, I said, and there's many ladies in the temple, so we have many ladies here. I said, I think I should get married. I wasn't picky or choosy. I just said, I told him, I said, I'm sure you'll make a good decision. And so he said, well, here's, these nice young brahmacharinis, and they're eligible. But I thought, okay, so if I have to pick, then let me pick one that I think will, because how do you judge? There has to be some chemistry. It's not a love marriage because we've never even met or talked together. But there are some signs and symptoms. And so, then they arranged to have a chaperoned association. And this goes on for several months. And this is very interesting. So, you'll go to another Grihastha couple's house, like Samaksha's house, and you'll read together. And, so you read together under his watchful eye. Okay? And you do this, and you go to perform certain activities in spiritual life together. So it goes on. And so after a few months, we decided that, the girl was thinking that, first of all, I was a little older by that time. I was 32 and the girl was 24. So she was thinking, this guy's really old. Maybe I should, get someone a little younger, like that. So she was a little hesitant. I said, okay, so no problem. It is what it is. You can't just try to force something, especially something as sensitive as this. But then after a couple of months, by the benefit of her friends, she had a change of heart, or a change of mind, perhaps. And so then, and now, of course, I'm married for 42 years. My wife is, we have 6 children, 8 grandchildren. And with her, we went to India and I did all this construction for Prabhupada, built his samadhi, and then together we also started a community in Alachua, Florida, that had been, unfortunately left abandoned for some time. And so it's good to have a partner. You have to associate carefully and choose. And Krishna arranges everything. So back to this, I never felt that I needed to go out and make money, even as a grihastha. Whatever the temple could provide in those days, literally it was $150, $200 a month. And that was our stipend. But we never had, the temple always provided. There was always prasadam. There was always a nice shelter, a nice, weather is that. So if you don't have expectations, Krishna takes care of you. But if you have expectations, then how can Krishna fulfill all these different material desires? He wants to see what will you be satisfied with. And so we just felt that we should just be satisfied with whatever Krishna gives us. And in that way, we were happy. We didn't have any desire to go out and work hard. At a certain point, when as the kids were growing up, I realized I needed to put something aside for them, not so much for me. I took a job with a friend of mine. He actually offered me a job. I wasn't looking. So remember, how happiness and distress come of their own accord. So I wasn't looking. But I had cultivated him. He was a nice gentleman. He was in the neighborhood, and he was a popular local fellow, and nobody could approach him. Because devotees sometimes don't really, they have expectations. And people are very sensitive. They can know, do you just want me to so you can sell me a book or to get a donation or? So I was just very friendly, which is a good nature to have. And so when I was looking for a job, he said, hey, I've got a software development company, and you can, this is 1995. And I says, and we're just starting out, and we could use some help, and you know a lot of things. And so I said, well, I'm not sure. It's been so many years since I had a 9-to-5 job, but all right, why not? I have to make some money for the kids, put away for their college tuition and stuff. So this company, we built it from the ground up. It was just a small software development company making medical billing software. It's called medical management. And after some time, it got the attention of some venture capitalists, and they wanted to do an IPO. And so those of us who've been working for some years, we all got some very nice shares at the certain price. And we took the company. The company was bought by another company you might know called WebMD. So they bought us, and our shares became overnight quite valuable. And at that point, most of us in the company, we realized we don't have to work anymore. So it wasn't Yahoo or Google, but it was enough. If you're simple, it's enough. So I basically retired from that. And I was, because I was in charge of the security as well as the purchasing division, I just wanted to use my talents for something. So I became a private investigator. I opened up a detective agency, which I ran very successfully. I became what's known as a fraud examiner, Association for Certified Fraud Examiners. So that was very lucrative. And then I didn't look for any of these things. Krishna just kind of said, okay, you like to do this, so do this. And I'll let you continue to do that. So then I retired as a private investigator after some years, and I thought, I'll just go. I went back to Vrindavan. My friend was still living there. We were doing a nice goshala. I was very peaceful. I thought, okay, I'm in my late 60s then. I'm 74 now, so I was in my 60s then. I said, I'm finally back in Vrindavan. And then I got a call from the GBC, who I had worked with for many years in different capacities. They said, we need you to come to New York. I said, New York for what? We have to take over the temple, which is now having some difficulty. I said, well, how long? I said, I'm retired. I'm in Vrindavan. I've already worked for 40 years in various capacities in ISKCON. No, just we don't know how long, but just come. So that was 7 years ago, and so it was. I didn't realize at the time, but I wasn't Radha Govinda are my Ishtadevatas. So I joined here, and somehow or other they brought me back here. So I'm not. Again, we're not looking for anything. Krishna does. He has his way. So I can just tell you clearly, definitively, from experience that as long as you're trying to become closer to Krishna, he will allow you, and he will give you all facility, materially and spiritually. There's no question. Like I said, I had no expectation that I would start, be in the software at the right time. It's all very coincidental. But these things happen, like I said. You don't have to look for it. Krishna will fix it up. So don't be in anxiety about jobs. Unfortunately now, with the way the markets are and things like that, it may take some time. And of course, my hearty blessings on you all to be employed in whatever it is you're seeking. But if you feel and find some difficulty, just remember, open up Bhagavad Gita and just, what do they say? Like when you're looking at your map, whether it's Waze or, you have a point where you can recenter. So when you press that point and you recenter, you say, then I know, okay, here's my center. Here's my compass. Which way is north, So don't worry. You have all the tools. Arjuna Nanda and the Bhaktivedanta Youth Services are giving you all these tools that weren't available just 20 years ago. These things did not exist. So we understand how Srila Prabhupada, his mercy has manifested in such a way that, how can you say, geometrically? It just exploded exponentially. People will look at this point years in the future and they'll be amazed how this Krishna consciousness transformed the world. It's just a matter of time. Just a matter of time. If you have faith, of course. You have to have faith.
So from being a brahmachari, of course we do not know your past life before that.
No, you don't want to know the past time.
So from being a brahmachari to a family man, to a father, to an entrepreneur,
a grandfather,
and to a personal investigator,
Vanaprasth. Yeah.
So let's have a huge round of applause. We have many more questions, but because time is limited, we just have...
You can come anytime. We're here.
Yes. A quick rapid fire. And how it works is, I'm going to tell you a word, to which you have to answer with one word. And you cannot say the same word for everything.
Are you sure?
Yeah. You have to tell me what comes to your mind first. ISKCON.
Prabhupada.
Prabhupada.
ISKCON. See?
Vrindavan.
Krishna.
New York.
Radha Govinda.
Bhagavad Gita.
Self-realization.
World politics. World politics.
World politics. Useless. Wait, you know that story. There's a story that, of course, it's attributed or misattributed to Gandhi. When he was supposedly, a reporter asked him, what do you think about Western civilization? And he responded, I think it would be a good idea.
Okay, that's all I had. So thank you very much. Again, as
Haribo.
thanks, Hansrupa Prabhu for this huge round of applause.
Hare Krishna.
And Prabhu for your time. Prabhu will be around. He's stationed here, as he mentioned.
Good food, good friends. What's it?
Yes. So if you have any questions for him, please do approach him and ask him. He'll be around. And before we conclude, we just have something quick. Can you just move the speaker? Move the speaker, that's it. And then just turn on that mic. So something quick. We have something called as the Inspire program.
Gotta give the mic back.
Inspire program is a donation portal. Because we conduct festivals, retreats, and programs for the youths, even on on a weekly basis. So we also, as a non-profit organization, we don't earn. I don't earn. Whatever I have is all donation. Is all donation. So we'll just show you our report. Okay, can I take it? Okay, maybe before that you do the connection.
Yeah, it's fine.
You have the name list of Inspire members, yeah, donors. Usme na go to Canva and 008. Okay, so we already have many donors because of which we are able to conduct monthly youth festivals and retreats and so many of the programs. So we wish to congratulate them and thank them by giving them our Inspire T-shirt. Okay, so we have a list of names. Okay, I don't know if everyone is here. Okay. So I would request maybe Chaitanya Prabhu, you can come here. He's also a donor. He is the top donor. Well, of course, I already gave him his T-shirt, but I'm calling him so he can do Kirtan in the meantime, in the background. So you can do Kirtan as they come and collect the T-shirt. You can do Kirtan with the Mridanga. Yeah, he'll show you. Okay, so first we have Sai Suraj. Is he here? Hari Bol. Play. Fast ho jao. Okay, then we have Gaurav Deshmukh. T-shirt do. L. Gaurav Deshmukh, L. Then we have Kaushal Solanki. Then we have Samaksh. Then we have Darshit. Darshit L. Yeah? Sure.
Okay. We have next Vaibhav Agarwal. He's not.
Announce all the names. All. Announce all the names.
That's all. Okay. Palash Chandrakar. Philip Julian. He's upstairs. Shrikant Kendre. Abhinav Venkatesh. Vigneshwaran Balu. Tarun Chawla. Manohar Reddy. Adhoksh Malhotra. Come up. Lad. अभी ये दे दो चेंज कर दो रितेश कायल परीक्षित मदहार that's it thank you
So we want to deeply express our gratitude to all of them because of them we are able to conduct these programs because everything costs and more so in New York City, isn't it? So because of them we are able to run these programs, and if you would like to join our program, especially the Inspire group, for those who are working, it'll be very helpful and it'll be a good contribution to help out other youths. Because this is our program. If you look at the T-shirt, our T-shirt says, this is the Inspire, and motto is helping youths connect to divinity. That's our motto. You get it?
Yeah.
Open the report. Somewhere. explain the report as we don't have time, but I'm going to just go through them. So these are some of the programs we have been. What do you want to do? You can put it in that. No. I think it's okay. No? Okay. Yes, presentation. Let me just go in presentation now. Okay. Too much to take. No, I think it's yeah. Okay, so this is our report, a summary report. If you can just see, we explore different places and make them holy because we go everywhere and have spiritual sessions. So these are different students from NYU, from Stevens, from Columbia, and other colleges. Yeah, to preach to the educated, smart, qualified youth of all nationalities in New York City and inspire them to become dedicated devotees of Sri Sri Radha Govinda and to assist in running a temple. So we have programs like we have ashram setting for the youths who can stay here and do their material duties while pursuing their spiritual duties. So they get counseling, they go in both, in all kinds of like they have counseling, they get training in discipline, punctuality, and all these qualities. Workshops, and you get to meet the sadhus, popular sadhus, celebrity sadhus also. New York City, everyone comes here. And these are some of the pictures from past MYF or sadhu visits. And most of these sadhus, they are not people who couldn't find job and they wore saffron robes. These sadhus are from IITs and ISC and top-notch people, highly intellectual. If you hear from them, you may have to hear again just to understand what they're saying. Yeah. And these are the youths who undergo BOS training, that is, they stay upstairs or some also stay close to temple or visit temple regularly. And they all chant Hare Krishna, they wake up early, lead life of competence and character. Yeah, these are some of the programs. We have programs in Jersey City, which is led by Sri Gopal Prabhu. Yeah. And we also have many volunteer opportunities and teach people how to cook, the youths especially, how to cook and good networking events. These are programs in Harrison. And these are some of the programs we have in temple. And many online sessions. Hare Krishna. Yeah, and these are Gita classes every Sunday evening we have. And of course, what you're attending now, the monthly festivals. And these are our retreats. These are the main attractions. If anyone of you has been with as part of our retreat, you will understand 2-3 days of ecstatic bliss, keeping material duties aside and just dancing in jubilation. Pictures means more than 1,000 words. So I put a lot of photos so it's very easily understandable. So this is a farm community in Pennsylvania called as Gita Nagari. And this is New Vrindavan. This is close to Boston, called as Malden. It's a recent retreat. Dramas. So we are training drama also. Drama, music, cooking. Become a bold person. Yeah. So these are some of the different programs we have and volunteering opportunities in big festivals conducted by the temple, like Rath Yatra, Janmashtami, etc. Yeah, we don't need to see the balance sheet. So I just wanted to give you gist of what we are doing here. This is another whole other presentation of what all we have done. So, in case anyone if wants to donate and help us out, please do reach out to us. We'd be more than ever grateful to you because we are in need of more and more help. Hare Krishna. So before we move on to the most exciting part of the program, the Mahaprasadam, we have another exciting kirtan by Chaitanya Prabhu. Isn't it? That's what I was told. No. He is very sweet singer.
But before that, the Krishna Bhukanam.
Krishna Bhukanam will do after the kirtan. Okay, so I request all of you to get up from the chair and just put it aside. Don't care where you're putting it, how you're putting it. Just put it aside. And Chaitanya Prabhu, does he have a mic? And how the kirtan goes is Chaitanya Prabhu will sing and we will repeat.